Good morning, everyone. I'm back from my mid-morning break here. Let's do another couple rounds of this 1920s hat. We're on round 16 and 17 now. So we chained our two, and we will do the double crochet, chain two to do the double crochet all the way around here. Or the half double crochet rather. I said double crochet, it's a half double crochet that we're doing. Alright, and I thought this morning, you know how we said we might start looking at easy ways to start a plant-based diet? Well, I thought about that at great length, actually. And I decided, maybe what we should do is kind of have a little background before doing that. That's probably just the old teacher in me, but I have a friend who keeps telling me that all the time. Oh, that's just your academic background. Well, yeah. Yeah, it is. Yes, indeed it is. But if we kind of know what we're doing, I think it makes it easier to do it, or why we're doing something, I think it makes it easier to do. So, since it's just us, and that particular friend's not here crocheting with us, so let's just do it our way and see how we go. We will get to that point of starting, and as we go along, I'll give you some pointers on starting too. We won't have to do a whole book, but I've been thinking of all the people who have influenced me on that, and there are big names in the world of plant-based dieting these days. I mean, people who have been doing this for 30 and 40 years, and who really have experience behind them, and scientific studies behind them, and also who have really sort of put their money where their mouth is. Some of them have really risked, at times when they started all this, they were risking their own reputations and careers. And, you can still get, there's big money and big protection money in the meat and dairy industries, and I know this, and yes, I have two brothers, as I've said before, who are cattlemen. Dr. Barnard mentions that he does also, that he has family still in the cattle business, and it's a little tricky. And of course the money and the lobbyists that go to work for those industries, the money's enormous, and the lobbyists are great, and they're effective, and so on. But apart from all that, some of those names, they've been around for a long time. One of my favorites, well, they're all my favorites, but one of them is Dr. McDougall, John McDougall. Now if you're into this at all, I'm sure you've heard of Dr. John McDougall. If you're not, he is so worth thinking about and acknowledging. And so I thought we might start by looking at the premises he makes in a book that came out in, I think, about 2012. It's one of his later books. He's been writing since the 80s, early 80s. But this book is one of his later ones, not his last one, but a later one. And it's called the Starch Solution, so I thought we might start going through that. But let's first name some of the other people who have been into this for a long time. Another person whom I just adore is Dr. Clapper. And both McDougall and Clapper work out in California. In fact, in Santa Rosa. And yes, this recent fire did affect these people. Dr. McDougall, I don't think I mentioned this to you before, maybe I did. Dr. McDougall lost his house, his car, his cars, his everything. And he had 2 daughters living in the area who also completely lost their homes, their cars, their everything. They got out with one set of clothes on their backs, and that's it. But they're carrying on, and other people, they have a lot of other people at this point working with them, and you know, that's an enormous jolt in anyone's life. Enormous. I can't even imagine that. But at any rate, I'm just looking at my work here for a moment. Okay, they got out alive and well, and are beginning to rebuild a bit. But there's Dr. McDougall, Dr. Clapper, Dr. Neil Barnard, I just mentioned him. There's Dr. Greger, who who just has a wealth of information on his website. All of them do. You know, even if you never bought one of their books, I think you could get everything you need off their websites. They are just so generous with their information and so encouraging. And there are lots of YouTube lectures and so on that they have made available. But okay, we just crocheted where I joined the yarn yesterday, so I wanted to kind of focus on getting through that little patch to make sure it's smooth, and there we are. We can't even see it. All right, that was part of what we were after. Let me unwind a little more yarn here. But so you know, Dr. McDougall talks in his own in the preface to the Starch Solution. He talks about how he's been doing this all these years, and he's seen so many good results from it. People have just been helped enormously with all kinds of things like diabetes and hypertension and even inflammatory arthritis, heart disease. Oh, Dr. Esselstyn's a big one too, a big name. And his work has been primarily in the area of heart disease, and at some point we might go over some of his material as well. Just looking at things he has to contribute, it's enormous. And he's such a wonderful person to talk to. He's just fantabulous. Well, so is Dr. Clapper and Dr. McDougall. But and all of them also acknowledge and rest upon T. Colin Campbell's work, the China study, and there's Rip Esselstyn, Dr. Esselstyn's son, who's done enormous work in this as well. So there are a whole lot of people. This isn't, and of course they all acknowledge their immediate colleagues like Dean Ornish and people like that. But all of that by way of saying, this isn't some fly-by-night diet, you know, eat lots of grapefruit or something. That's not putting any of those approaches down. They work for some people, but they're not necessarily what you would want to do for the rest of your life and to keep you healthy. You know, they may help you lose a little weight or something, but they're not things that might keep you healthy for the rest of your life. Actually, Dr. McDougall wrote a book called, what was it called? Something about a second opinion. A challenging, I think it was challenging, a challenging second opinion. And in it, he gives a different approach to treating everything from cancer, and my cat's here again bothering me. Hi, sweetie. No, I'm busy now. I'm busy. Can't you see I'm busy? Well, come up here. Come on. Come on up here. Come on, you can show everybody you're here. You're so pretty. Come on. Here he comes. Here he comes. All right. Kitty in the crochet. Yeah, Kitty in the crochet looking at us here. All right, now get up here on the table if you want up here. Come on, get up here and I'll give you a treat. There you go. Oh, well, don't move the camera around. Here, sweetie. Okay, so yes, and in the challenging second opinion, Dr. McDougall talks about a different approach for working with cancer and with heart disease, and what were some of the other things he had in there? Arthritis, osteoporosis, that's another one. And I think there was urinary diseases, and it's been a while since I've worked with that book. Diabetes, and I mentioned hypertension. I think those were the main ones he worked with in that book. Okay, we're at the end of this row. I'm going to oops, I don't want to do that. I just want to slip stitch into this. Okay, we slip stitched in, and now we'll chain 2 and go around again with our half double crochets, if I can get the cat off my paper here. Okay, that was row 16. So in this book, Dr. McDougall getting this second row that we're doing this morning started, and then here we go. All right, off and running again. You know, he works. He gives you a lot of things that you kind of intuitively feel and know, but he's got them all backed up with scientific evidence as well. And he uses a lot of this in his book and of course in his whole work. Now, he's a standard medical doctor. He uses standard medicine with people as well. He's not some totally off the wall person. He's a standard doc. But he does have that, he does bring out I always feel he brings out in us what we intuitively know already, and gives us a reason for trusting that intuition and for doing it. And of course he gives the scientific ways of doing it, and so we can feel much more confident in it. And we've all tried, even if it's just for weight loss. People have tried diets from forever, and a lot of them work for a while. They really do, but you can't stick with them. Or something else starts to go wrong because they're the kind of a diet that's gotten everything out of balance. I was talking to a friend of mine, or emailing with a friend of mine just this morning on this business of balance, because she's been taking a lot of a particular supplement, and from her last blood test got a call from her primary care physician that said, stop that, stop it, are you taking such and such? Yes. Well, stop it, because you are at toxic levels of that. So, you have to know what you're doing. But at any rate, we've tried many, many things and in these diets, and this is just speaking of weight loss now, but of other things as well, but mainly weight loss. We've tried, they've worked for a while, we've failed, but haven't been able to stick with them. And in some ways, for many of them, that's a blessing, because we could have gotten things so out of balance like my friend was doing. But at other times, you know, even if they're not that kind of a diet, you start to slip because it's restricting you of foods that your body wants and needs. And that's what's so interesting about this starch solution. We've all had diets in the past, 30 years or more, 40 years, you know, that restrict carbohydrates. And it really is like two political parties. The nation is divided on this. Those who avoid fats, those who avoid carbs. And we have a carb phobia going on. And that's one of the things that Dr. McDougall really helps us cure in ourselves, this phobia of carbs that we have. But at any rate, carbs are so good because they're so satisfying to us. That's what probably enables us to stick with that food approach more than anything else, is that we do feel satisfied when we're on it. And when we're satisfied, we can stick with it. And of course, it also, you know, we see the results in our health. It helps us to just literally feel healthier and comforted, because starches are comfort foods and they fill us up. Let's see what I'm doing here. I'll have a sip of coffee. There we go. So any food approach that can help us look better and feel better and work better and be healthier. Blood pressure goes down. My husband's blood pressure is excellent again. I think he's soon going to be able to get off his blood pressure medications completely. Now, don't try that on your own. You know, work with your doctor to do it. Cholesterol, he's got better cholesterol readings than I've ever seen in him before. And you know, doctors are obliged to try to put you on statin drugs if your total cholesterol levels are 200 or over. Well, we didn't hear anything after this last blood test a couple of weeks ago about statin drugs, because that reading was well below 200. I think it was 177 or 79, something like that. Anyway, and I expect it to get even better because he hasn't been on this all that long. Okay. So I'm delighted with it. Now, people usually have a lot of questions as they start this kind of approach, and that's partly because we've been bombarded in the media with information that's made us fearful of this kind of thing. And, you know, we feel like, well, if I don't drink milk, where am I going to get my calcium? Milk, cheese, all the dairy products. Where am I get yogurt? Where am I going to get my calcium? Well, we learn quickly in this program that there are lots of places you get calcium that are much better than milk. So we'll come to all of that. And, you know, in that book, The Starch Solution, Dr. McDougall and all of these main people are acknowledging this these days. The reasons we don't hear, in many instances, it's growing now, thank goodness, but the reasons we don't hear in many instances about this approach is because there's so much money on the other side that kind of shuts it up. But you know, the Starch Solution even has a question and answer section in it, so we might see some of the we'll look at some of the topics there, and you can see from Dr. McDougall's point of view that they are just not problems at all. And not only that, as I've mentioned to you before, eating a plant-based diet is an economical way to live. Most people cut their, as I've said, it takes a while to do the transition in your kitchen, but once you've done it, most people cut their grocery budget by about a third. And here we're at the end of this particular row again, and I'm going to slip stitch right into this first other stitch here, the second of the two chain stitches. Okay, here we are. And that took us just a tad bit over our 20 minutes, I think. Remember, we're focusing on 20 minutes in this. Okay. Looking good. See, I'm just so tempted to leave this as a bowl. It's such a beautiful purple bowl here, instead of putting it on my head. But I'm going to keep going into it. Let's stop there for today. Tomorrow we'll start round 18, or when I come back later, if I can get in another session this afternoon. Remember, I like to do 2 crochet sessions, 20 minutes, because it really is like a meditation for us. So I'm unwinding a little bit more yarn here, so we'll be ready to start. And here we are. Looking inside the hat, that we have 2 where we joined our skeins there, and here we're leaving off on today's stitching. Okay. I will see you later on today, hopefully. Take care, and think about plant-based diets.